So I own Strong Solutions. I'm now working with Watchman Monitoring as well. Watchman was a huge component, and I'll get to some of that a little bit in building what I was able to do on the service bench. But why do we want to do this? We want to do this because we want to standardize and normalize the diagnostic process. We want each tech to tech to do the exact same thing, right? Because we don't want one tech that checks these 5 things and another tech that checks all 10 things that you actually want checked. So by standardizing and having procedures, having checklists, it's going to make your entire process more normal and equitable across the board, and also allow for techs to be able to pick up and drop off between each other and help the techs out, instead of in a lot of benches I've seen, a machine gets assigned to a tech, and maybe that tech gets bogged down with another repair or something like that. They can't get back to that machine. If you've normalized your service, if you have checklists, it's very easy to hand that off to another tech and have them pick up and carry the repair on. And ultimately, what we all want to do and why we're better than other options that are out there is because we're providing a better level and more complete service for that. So a little bit of our agenda here, talk about process documentation, building your data, your knowledge base, creating phrase snippets, and using web forms and call shots to kind of automate and make things a little bit easier for communication to your customers. I'm going to touch lightly on what I did to automate with Monkey for patch management and basically automatic updating, and then using the Watchman Monitoring summary as kind of a nice takeaway for the customer at the end. So for documentation, you have a lot of tools available: Google Docs, Microsoft OneDrive, a wiki, not OS X Server Wiki anymore, sorry. And a tool that I really love is Clarify for documenting processes and grabbing screenshots. So what we did was I just used a wiki. My preference was DokuWiki, which is free and open source. It allows for code snippets and things like that very easily. I should have taken Apple's wiki off of that because it's not valid anymore. There's a lot of different wikis out there. If you're not familiar, Wiki is Hawaiian for quick. It was developed at the University of Hawaii. The initial format, it's basically a markup format that's pretty standardized, except for Apple's wiki. You can take that wiki and move it to any other type of wiki system, and the formatting will be retained, and links and stuff will be retained. So it's pretty cool that way. I liked it because it's very searchable and it's easy to build and add more pages onto that. But Google Doc, is very much along the same lines. There's a little bit more security you can put onto a Google Doc, so you can control who has access to that as well. So the thing that I really like to do this, to document my processes with, is Clarify. This is by Blue Mango Software. It allows you to very quickly generate screenshots with instructions. You can create a customized branded template, so if you're creating instructions to hand to your customer or your end user, it has your branding on it, it has your look and feel to it. You didn't work very hard to do that other than take a couple of screenshots and write a couple of step-by-step notes to that. Makes you really look professional when you're handing a document to the end user. So Clarify is a really great product for that. Moving beyond that is building your knowledge base, and that's when you're finding, and I see this when I step into other service benches. I see the one printed out, printout of how to remove the 501 user, so you can get back to a fresh install. It's great that it's printed out and on the wall somewhere, but really you want to have that electronically in a shared location. And that's what your knowledge base is there for. It should be easy to access, very searchable, a place where you can continually update that information. And it takes the knowledge, it helps you take the knowledge out of one person's head and put it somewhere where everybody can get to it, and you can share it amongst your team. Things that I like to include is specific issues, support articles. As we saw the other day, there's a lot of support articles out there, and I don't know about you, but I can barely remember my address, let alone a support article number. So this is a great way of putting support articles with searchable text that you would remember, not just what Apple is calling it, into a listing, and even direct linking into GSX and the support articles and whatnot that way. Any of your best practices is a great thing to add into this. Any of the business resource locations, where installers are located, where specific tools are located, things like that, so that you're not totally reliant on one person knowing where everything is stashed and stored. And obviously, organizing your bench area is going to help that as well. Any HR resources, especially if you're onboarding folks, this makes this a lot easier to be able to send them to one central location. And here's all the step-by-step things that they would need to do to onboard as an employee, getting their email set up, where to find all of these other resources that you're looking for, that you're going to need. And then the ICE information, and that's the in case of emergency. Fire, power loss, flooding, your Comcast cable going out, how to get hold of Comcast, what the account number is, things like that, so that you're, as the business owner, maybe not stuck being the only one holding the string if there is an issue while you're out here, at ASMC and learning new things. So some of the things that we documented was the machine intake process. Our base diagnostic process. So when a computer came in for service, these are the top steps that we wanted to step through on every single computer. Routine tasks. The reason why we don't have plane accidents anymore is because all of those pilots in the front of your plane go through a checklist every single time. It's routine. They do it every day, but they have a checklist so that they don't miss anything. Our techs should be the same way. They should have a checklist for all of their procedures and make sure that after step 1, they follow step 2. It seems rudimentary, but we tend to get into kind of a rush and yeah, we've done this before, and you start skipping steps. And by documenting that and having checklists, it's gonna help normalize that and avoid mistakes. And that means that you're not having a customer coming back because there's a loose screw, they forgot to move the data across, things like that. The other thing we like to do is a service completion review. So this is to make sure that we've tidied up all of the things that we might have done. We've uninstalled software tools that we might have put on the computer to go through our process. We have made sure that we've removed the temporary user that we put on that computer to get other tasks completed. Make sure all the screws are tight. Make sure that the screen is cleaned. The outside of the case is clean, things like that. And then also that final last step, the delivery of the computer to the customer. What does that process look like? Make sure that it's documented so that it's very easy to make sure that your front of house staff go through the same procedure. One doesn't just wing out a laptop and kind of throw it at the customer, and the next one actually treats it like it's their own and kind of kit glove it. And then the other thing was, like I touched on before, the employee onboarding and offboarding process. And this is also to help you so that you make sure that, especially if an employee leaves, that you make sure that you get them signed out of all of their accounts. So this is helping you as an organization make sure that you've kind of crossed your T's and dotted your I's and made sure that they're removed from Apple systems and things like that. So those are all the different types of things that you would want to document. So this is an example of the checklist that we use for a diagnostic process. What we used was TextExpander. I just had this in here, and it was, like whack whack diag, and it would just drop this entire checklist in here. And this is designed that they could put their cursor right into the brackets and type an X for that. So, make sure that they're doing the same thing, and as long as they're checking that off and saving it in their notes, if another tech needed to pick that up, they could see exactly where they were in the process and move on to the next one. And the idea here is that you would add notes towards the end of the lines if something was found for that. So this is an example of our service completion. We made sure that we ran all of our updates, check the hard drive name, startup disk, email, iPhoto, photos, Office, other things like that. And made sure that because we're using Watchman monitoring, it created Zendesk tickets, so I want to make sure we clear those out as well. And then most importantly, clean the machine. Some people's machines are disgusting. This also helped us in normalizing our phrasing and our snippets. I don't know about your techs, but my techs couldn't spell to save their lives. So by having the snippets already done, the spelling's already checked, the grammar's already checked, they just had to remember, a snippet to type, and it would expand all of the verbiage that they actually needed for that. So, and what I did was I organized that into job functions. So I organized it by the check-in, check-out, diagnostics, different repair scenarios that we had. And this made it a lot easier for us as a whole to sound consistent, not tell the customer something that's inaccurate, and just be standardized with what we were saying and communicating with customers. So I did this with TextExpander. TextExpander 6 for Teams can be a little pricey. Admittedly, it's $99 a year per employee. But the beauty of this is that you can auto-subscribe employees to a group. That group can have snippets, and you can determine who has access to which snippets in that. And when you update it, it updates for everybody. So if you're sitting in your office and you decide you want to change the verbiage, you change it once, everybody has all of the updated verbiage in their TextExpander immediately. You're not having to rely on maybe some document that you share in a hopefully a central location and make sure they're copying and pasting the right thing. You can update TextExpander in one location and share it. The other beautiful thing about this is there's an iOS app. Works on the iPad, works on the iPhone. So you have access to all of those snippets as well on your iOS device. So this means emails, canned emails, and responses that you might use, you can all put into TextExpander and have that uniform response no matter where you are, whether you're on a mobile device or you're actually at your desktop. So we organize based on job function for this, so things like the front counter, internal bench, customer-facing things, also phone notes. To make it easier when we're talking on the phone, we wanted to keep our lives consistent. So, I'm kidding. So we would make sure that the phone notes, but we had kind of shortcuts. You can pop up little menus that make it really easy to basically answer a few basic questions and say, hey, we called them and let them know their machine is ready. We got a voicemail. And instead of having to figure out what a tech might have typed as a note, we had kind of a standardized formula for that. And in this example, we had all of the body text that would go into an email. So if a customer dropped off an AppleCare service, we wanted to describe to them what our process was going to be. Now, if you're using PIMS or something like that, you can definitely automate this and take what I'm putting in here into something like PIMS. But if you're using Lightspeed or a different system, when you generate that email, it's very easy to just type in //app or something like that and have it dump this entire text body into the email, so now the customer knows what your process is going to be for servicing their phone or their computer. And again, you're not relying on an employee trying to type, which most of them can't. So TextExpander, and I don't work for TextExpander. I'm not trying to sell you on this. There's other snippet tools out here. I'm just showing you what I was able to do. One of the things I really love about TextExpander is that you can build forms to collect and organize data. So this was our form that we used for basically getting an intake summary of the computer. So how much memory is in it, how big the hard drive is, how much free space it is, what operating system was it on. This is all CYA stuff, in my opinion. So let's get a baseline of where we started with this computer, and then at the end of the process, we go back and double check. Part of our process was to go back and double check. If it came in with 4 gigs of RAM, is it going out the door with 4 gigs of RAM? If it came in with a 1 terabyte hard drive and they didn't buy a hard drive upgrade, is it leaving with a 1 terabyte hard drive? If they asked for an OS upgrade, did that actually happen? What base OS did it come in on? So this is all for kind of CYA, so that when the customer came back to us and said, no, I had, whatever the latest OS was on there, you go, no, when you brought it in, it was this, because we documented it. This has also, like I said, helped with just general profile information, also helped with upsells. So if they aren't on the latest OS, you could sell it very easily, encourage your techs to sell the OS upgrade or what have you for that. So the other thing that I did was I used web forms, whether you're using, I use Ninja Forms, but there's a lot of different form tools out there. This simplified customer notifications for us. So it was a simple page that they basically loaded up, copy and pasted the customer email address, picked the current message that they wanted to send them, and it would shoot off the email. Again, I think PIMS automates this pretty well for you, but it also helped in keeping our messages uniform, professional, and again, kept them from typing words that are misspelled and things like that. And this really helped keep our techs off the phone and moving on to the next service. There's a couple of other ways of doing this as well for phone calls. I used VoiceShot, which is a horrible looking interface. It's something out of like the CompuServe 1990s for a web page, but it works really well. Simplecast and CallFire are 2 other options. And these are great because you can customize them. They auto-detect whether or not they've gotten voicemail or an answering machine. And you can say, hey, this is so-and-so from, I fixed your computer, store, and your computer's ready to go. If you have any questions, stay on the line if they actually answered the phone, or give us a call back. You can alternate that message at whatever your store number was for that. So being able to just fire these off and move on to the next thing just kept the techs off the phone. And that also saved us a lot of time and headache, because when a customer got an employee on the phone, what do? Especially a technician. It's Free Help Friday, right? Well, except it's Thursday. While I have you here. So this is an example of what our form looked like. It's basically copy and paste their name in, email, pick the current status of it, and basically fire that form off. If they needed to put any additional notes or a message in there, we actually had snippets that you could copy and paste into the notes field for that. So this standardization just made life a lot easier and better for them. So if you want to see this, you can still do this and send yourself emails. I don't care. SpokaneMac.com/SRO, and you can play with this form too. So, and this is an example of the email that you would get from it. Again, if you want to go play with it, you can get a copy of this email as well. So this is CallShot, like I said, CompuServe, 1990s. It's a great interface. But it really eased our burden of being on the phone. Only if the customer really needed to talk to us did they hang on the line. It basically called the store. It looked like an incoming phone call for us. And they basically, hey, we just got a call about our computer. I have some additional questions. It cut our call volume probably in half, if not down to a third of what we were doing before, when we were actually picking up the phone and calling a customer. because it was that while you were on the phone, I got other questions for you. The next thing that we did was automate the bench with Monkey. And what Monkey is essentially a package installer. It allows us to load various applications that we might want to one-click install and have in a centralized location. It allows you to automate installation of tools. I use it to automatically install Watchman monitoring. It helps normalize the update process. It'll also manage your Apple software updates. And what it allows you to do is basically install one piece of software. It fires off, it gathers all of the updates for all of the software that you have in your repo, along with your Apple software updates, and presents it to you in one nice form. And what I did with this is I created a little script that basically gave us the ability to install this. It installed the Monkey tool, it ran the Monkey tool, it would jack the volume up to 11 and yell at my tech to say that I'm all done, and then turn the volume back down to whatever the setting was. And then I had an offboarding script that basically completely removed these tools. But what it allowed us to do is make sure all of the system software updates were done, all of the Microsoft Office updates were done. It just allowed us to provide a better level of service so that when they got that computer back, everything was up to date. Because I want to say that 90% of people's problems with their computers, if it's not hardware, is the fact that they just have not run their updates. And just running their updates 90% of the time will fix a number of their problems. So it gave us all the updates in one place. You're seeing OS updates, you're seeing your iTunes updates, you're also seeing things like Firefox being up to date for that. And then it's a simple click of the Update All button, and we're off to the races. My techs can move on and do other things while this is installing all of that software for us. If they needed to install other things, so maybe they were buying Microsoft Office and you're offering that as an install service, it's a one-click install here. It's not a, let's go to Microsoft's website, download Office 365, and go and install it. It's one-click install and we're ready to go. Now that also allowed me to install Watchman monitoring for that, and bear with me because I'm going to turn this thing back on so I can see what I'm talking about, maybe. So with Watchman monitoring, that gave us that kind of tipped the scale for us because it showed us upgrade potentials. If memory, it's going to tell you if memory upgrades are possible now on computers and what the max RAM, Apple's max RAM, and also what the actual max RAM was possible. Got a nice malware report. You could tell if smart status on a hard drive. So maybe they brought it in for an issue, a single issue. The report that we were getting out of Watchman monitoring allowed us to potentially upsell other services while we had it in and on the bench. So with the Watchman monitoring summary, when it came up, you see that you have a warning, and if you scroll down, we would see that, oh, look, malware tests. That just means that I'm printing money at this point. Contact them. Hey, have you been noticing a bunch of pop-ups in your browser? Sure. Well, we can fix that for you. And then also, things like if the memory was upgradable, that's all showing on the side for the different tech specs that are available for the computer. And the other thing that I really like to do was we would take the PDF that you can publish. So once everything's all clear, you get a nice little green checkbox, and you have all of these tests that have nice little green check marks next to them. We would print this to a PDF and include this in the email that we sent along to the customer as, hey, these are all the things that we did. You have a clean bill of health for your computer. Most of my customers were really impressed that we ran all of these checks because I know I broke a sweat clicking a button to install the software to do it. They have no idea, and I'm not going to tell them that, but it made it really easy to give them this little report which actually nowadays with all the plugins can be 3 to 4 pages long. They think, that gives a really nice impression that you really did a thorough job on that computer. And all you did was install Watchman Monitoring, go to the website, download the PDF, and attach it to that. And then you have the option of leaving that on the computer as a service, selling them that service into the future, or just remove it, and just use it as a diagnostic tool. If it's for me, I'm not here. A few final thoughts. Normalizing the bench is going to make your process more efficient. It's going to give your techs a little bit less stress because they have a checklist to go through. Checklists really change the dynamics of our bench. It's a little bit difficult to sit down and write those checklists. Part of it is having somebody basically hover over the other tech and go, okay, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? And kind of coalescing all of that together into one checklist and make sure that you covered things. And also being confident enough and empowering your techs that if you're missing something in your process, let's talk about that and update that checklist. Because it's only going to help everybody in the process. Defining the workflows makes it really easy to hand off services between technicians and allow the techs to help each other and know exactly where they're at in each other's processes. And that just makes your entire bench a lot more efficient. And then documenting your processes, documenting your business, just makes your entire operation better and more successful. And if you ever hope to pass the business on or sell the business, having documentation to all of your processes is definitely going to help with that. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I open it up to questions, and if there are any. Monkey does not cost anything. It's a free open source product. There is a script out there called Monkey in a Box. And there's also a presentation that I did a couple of years ago on setting up Monkey for the service bench that I did here at ASMC. And all of those tools and scripts are all available for you. The voice shot, that service, there is a charge for it, but it's pennies per phone call. So, I mean, it's really, you give them, I gave them $100 a month, which I couldn't pay an employee $100 a month to make phone calls, and they just deduct a couple of pennies, every time they made a call for me. So the struggle with voice shot is that you have to set some time aside to record everything that you're ever going to say to a customer, and also be okay with the fact that your first try is probably your best try when you're recording something audible that way, and just go with it. And then we have this thing called GarageBand. You can hack the crap out of your voice and shorten and tighten the message up, and most customers won't notice because they still think it's a computer anyway. Just make sure that you introduce the message that this is an automated message, because some customers will say, oh, well, they're calling me, and start talking, and then get up to realize, 30 seconds in, oh, I'm not talking to anybody. They feel foolish, they're upset. Then they do want to call you and talk to you, and they'll chew your ear for 5 minutes. Other questions? No, it actually shows the caller ID. They pass that through because they basically do a call. I don't know what the magic is, but they do a call connection for that. The outbound call looks like it's coming from your number, yes. And then the inbound call actually is from their number. So you know exactly who's calling you, so you can avoid that call. No, but they do exist. What we did was, if somebody wanted a text message, we would put, instead of their email address, we would go look up whatever, like their phone number at mms.att.com or net or whatever it was, and just put that in as the email. Now that SMS messages don't really have a length capacity, our emails were short enough that we could just email that to them as a text message, and that sufficed. But there are services out there that do that. Other questions? Dan? Are we still recording? I borrowed heavily from what I was getting off of Mac MSP Gruntwork, and just didn't install the Gruntwork component of that. But there's tools that come with, if you do Monkey in a Box, Auto Package comes with that. Auto Package will automatically grab those software packages on a daily basis and basically build your repository. So with Auto Package, you could just add Firefox, Chrome, things like that, and it just goes out and gets the latest version every night, so your repository is kept up to date automatically for you. So it's pretty well documented on the AutoTask page. And then, like I said, if you use the Monkey in the Box script out there, it'll build all of that for you. And it's just a matter, there's a GUI tool called AutoPackager with an R at the end of it. And that makes it super easy to sort through all of the available packages and software tools that are out there that you can have in your repository. It's literally one click, add it to your repository, and it'll automatically check and update ad nauseum. We can make that happen, Dan. Other questions? Other things people are doing? Is this helpful? Are you guys still awake? All right. Okay, yeah, go ahead. The checklists were strictly internal. I tried to hide as much from the customer as possible because they asked too many questions. And that's part of why we had normalized text snippets as well, so that we would, if you installed a hard drive, it was, we installed your new hard drive and installed the latest operating system, and it was very generic in what we put in those messages, so that they couldn't come back and say, well, you said you were going to do this, and it says this. It was I generalized it very, or extremely, I made them extremely generalized so that it was just kind of a basic outlay of service. Our internal notes were heavily detailed, checklists, any issues were notated, along every step of the way. I also used TextExpander to do a time date stamp. So we had a little snippet. We basically created a snippet for each person's initials. So they would, whack in their initials, and that would actually put a time date stamp in their initials and then put the cursor there and let them type. So that really helped us in knowing exactly what happened for, along every step of the way. And if you had contact with a customer, we wanted to document every phone call because, again, we wanted to make sure we were keeping our lives consistent. I'm kidding, but whatever's been told to the customer, we want to make sure that the next tech that they get hold of doesn't give them a different answer because they didn't go through and read the notes. And customers were more than willing to say, when we get them on the phone, give me a second and let me catch up on the notes so that we could, pull up their record and scroll through and see what everything's been said to them, so that we stayed on message. Other questions? All right. Yeah. Just getting the email really cut down on phone calls for status updates. So, I mean, the forums, you can go to it now. It's SpokaneMac.com/SRO, and you can see what that forum looked like. We had different statuses for, like, the part's been received, the part's, you're in the diagnostic process, your repair is complete. These are all the touch points that Apple wants us to make with the customer, and you can do it in an automated fashion. Most of them, because they're only getting that one email from that form, one or two emails from that form, they don't know that you're rinsing and repeating for every single customer that same message. So, I mean, if your customers get together and conspire and say, look, you're sending us all the same thing, you've got other issues. But it does, instead of passing the buck to somebody else to make that call, using the form, at least to send the email, you could even set up the form. I mean, if you're using Gravity Forms or something like that, you can have it CC somebody else in the organization, which is also maybe the clue to call them and repeat the exact same information that's in that email to them. Hey, your computer's ready. Come on and pick it up. That sort of thing. That's how I would do it. Because the tech, I mean, it takes 2 seconds for a tech to pull up the form, copy and paste an email address in, and hit go. I mean, and it was the form. We rarely had any questions about it, and the form was set up that if they replied to it, it opened a ticket in our Zendesk, so everybody saw that immediately, and then the question could be escalated or dealt with from there. But most customers loved having that immediate feedback, especially if they were getting a notification during the diagnostic process. Oh, the part's been received. Sometimes we changed our message a little bit because they were like, oh, that means it's ready. No, no, it doesn't. It means that we're gonna work on it and let you know as soon as that repair is ready. But that all of that's there. Feel free to hit the form up and borrow heavily from it. It's SpokaneMac.com/SRO. Other questions? Other things people are doing that are successful? Other things that people are doing that are not successful? Right. So just for the folks at home, the suggestion was Typinator as another tool in comparison to TextExpander. It's very similar, a little less expensive. Also allows form building and centralized sharing of the various text snippets. But it does not have an iOS app. Other tools folks are using that are helping their process along? So a pre-check-in form to have your customers fill out before they even come in, or? Okay, so you're actually using paper. Okay. Okay. So basically a paper questionnaire, but moving that to an electronic form, and the electronic form you could potentially email to that computer right up front that you're doing the check-in and copying. Then you're copying and pasting those details in. Yeah, that's brilliant. Nice. Yeah, the whole goal here is to help automate these processes and get not only the customers in and out faster, but make it easier. That front desk can be a battle zone sometimes for check-ins. Okay, so again, for the folks at home, it's Above North, which is a plugin for Lightspeed that helps do the status updates for service repair orders or SROs, and Zendesk. Oh, it goes through Zendesk. I see it. So it's an interconnect between Lightspeed and Zendesk for notifications and updates. Great. All right. Any other tips, tricks, or tools? If not, then we'll wrap this up, and I'll thank you guys.